Secretary Pete Buttigieg and I had a chance to talk yesterday. They asked us to hold the conversation until today. We were talking about maybe some improvements coming to rail in the Chicago area. I understand that there is some funding coming to Illinois and the Chicago area. Tell me what I should know. I don't know much more about it than that. I do have a list here of some of the corridors that are going to receive some funding or expansion, but tell me what we should know in Chicago.
Well, we're really excited about this, and it is especially important for the Midwest and for Chicago because we are now putting those dollars to work to improve passenger rail. As you'll recall, President Biden is a big believer in passenger rail, so am I, but in this country, we have not put in the funding that it takes to have world-class rail options for most Americans. This is a big step toward changing that. This week, we are announcing $8 billion in grants going to everything from a corridor in New England that's needed work for a long time to high-speed rail connecting Nevada to California. But one part I'm especially excited about is what's coming right to Chicago. We have two projects. We're sending $44 million to support one and $49.6 million to support the second, both of which relate to platform improvements at Chicago Union Station. This is part of a bigger vision for Union Station and for rail service around Chicago. The governor has a very ambitious vision, and this is the beginning of getting that off the drawing board and making it into a reality. With these funds, we're going to start seeing better, more reliable, improved service for Union Station so that in many ways we can come full circle to the railroad service that helped put Chicago on the map in the first place.
I'm happy to hear that, and I'll take any improvements we can get to either rail service or Union Station in general. What would it take for us to get high-speed rail? What would it take for us to get a fast train to St. Louis, Detroit, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, something that we don't have right now? Is that on the drawing board anywhere?
It's beginning to be, and I would say this is a down payment on getting that done. The truth is, even with historic funding, it's not possible yet to have a national high-speed network built in the short term. But with this funding, we're going to have the first specific high-speed services available in America. The one that can get it done most quickly is in Nevada. There's a proposal with a private partner that is aiming, by the time of the Olympics in 2028, to have service from Las Vegas to the LA area. A part of what makes that possible is they're running it down the median of I-15, so there's already a right-of-way that's ready to go. There's another project that runs north-south in California, and I believe that the first time an American is able to experience high-speed rail in earnest on U.S. soil, there's going to be no going back because we're going to be saying, why can't we have this everywhere? And the Midwest is ripe for an excellent high-speed rail network because you have so many cities that are 2 or 3 hours away from each other. Yeah. As we get that done, there will be economic benefits, major job creation, as well as climate benefits and congestion benefits.
By the way, the grants include money on the Chicago to Carbondale corridor. That's the train I used to take when I went to school at Southern Illinois, Chicago to St. Louis corridor. So is it infrastructural improvements, overpasses, viaducts, platforms, that sorts of thing?
So there's two sets of announcements. The physical construction in this round is centered around Union Station, and that $93 million or so going to improve platforms and take some of the first steps that are a bigger part of Governor Pritzker's vision for the Chicago Hub Improvement Program. Then we have a second program called Corridor ID. And what we're doing is we're putting forward the funding to help build out the plans that will eventually get these visions off the drawing board. That includes a Milwaukee to Chicago service expansion. There's a service now, but they're interested in adding new frequencies to it. Indianapolis to Chicago, improving the service there. And others like the Carbondale connection that you mentioned, as well as connecting Chicago to Grand Rapids, to Port Huron, to St. Louis, really radiating out in all directions.
That's good to hear. And trust me, as a guy who's used Metra and Amtrak around here, I'm anxious for all of that. By the way, I watched the Republican debate, and I actually thought a little bit about you as they were all raising their voices and shouting one-liners. And I wondered if a person who had participated in a presidential debate like that before looks at that and thinks, Oh, I'm glad I don't have to do that today.
Yeah, it is a little strange to watch that process play out, but more than anything else, it makes me glad for the job that I've already got because, we get to build the future, improve transportation for people in everyday life. And the whole point of campaigning is that if you succeed, you get to govern. Our administration takes this governing opportunity seriously, and I'm just so proud and so grateful to be part of it on the transportation side.
I was wondering if we were going to have to do a GoFundMe for you since the House passed a resolution to cut your pay to $1. I'm sure you're familiar with that.
Yeah, I'm not a millionaire, so that would certainly be an issue, but it's not. I don't think it's likely to become law. And in any case, we're focused on actually getting stuff done. I know any given day there's a new political stunt playing out on Capitol Hill, but we got real work to do. And my focus is to make sure that we get these railroad improvements done, that we complete the work that we've set out to do on roads and bridges and tunnels. And importantly, that we keep air travel moving. Thanksgiving, we had the busiest air travel day in American history, 2.9 million passengers, less than 0.1% cancellations. And we're very focused on staying on the airlines to make sure they can keep delivering better results. So I got more than enough to keep me busy, and the rest is it's political noise, and that's for better or for worse. That's just how it works around here sometimes.
Look at that, a transportation secretary staying in his lane. One last question our news director wanted us to ask you about last Christmas when the weather was bad. Transportation was really complicated. Is the U.S. aviation system ready to handle a snowstorm or an ice storm at Christmas? I know that air traffic controllers are understaffed, and I just wonder how prepared we are as a nation for really bad weather this winter.
Well, we've seen major improvements compared to where we were a year or a year and a half ago, both in terms of the system. It's performing much better, even as we've had historic records in terms of air passenger boardings this year, but also in terms of passenger protections. And I would encourage anyone who is planning to travel over the holidays to go to flightrights.gov, a website that we set up last year to help make sure passengers understand what to expect and what they can demand from airlines. We enforce that. We'll have more announcements soon on how we're following up on some of what happened a year ago. Nobody can control the weather, but we are pressing the airlines to better control everything that is under their responsibility. And for our end on air traffic control, we have finally reversed the years-long decline in the number of air traffic controllers. We're adding, not subtracting. Now we're working with Congress to try to speed that up.
If I were king, if you delay a flight or if a flight has to land early because you're being disruptive, if you're one of those videos, you never get to fly again. Maybe that's up to the commercial airlines to set their own policies, but I think it's a federal issue too. I don't think those people should ever fly again. That's harsh, but there should be no excuse for that.
We know many of the airlines are doing exactly that, but we're also federally pursuing enforcement action. We are referring these cases under a zero-tolerance approach that the FAA has taken for prosecution. And people should know that you face not just very stiff and severe fines from the FAA, but the very real risk of criminal prosecution if you act on an airplane in a way that endangers the flight, the crew, and the passengers.
Any other designs for you politically after you are the transportation secretary?
Not right now. This takes more than 100% of my capabilities to make sure we stay on top of all of this. So I'm thankful to have the role that I have. I'm grateful that President Biden has trusted me to do this work, and we're going to keep delivering for Chicago and everywhere else in the country, at least for the foreseeable future.
Secretary Pete, thank you for doing what you're doing and keep doing it. Stay in the game, sir.
Thank you. Great speaking with you. Take care.